hello. This is okay. So, I was gonna do Warframe, but then as I was setting up to go live, I saw Mason went live, and I was like, you know, we could do Terraria, make some progress. So I just asked him if he wanted to do this, because he hit low live and he was gonna play zombies. Black Ops 3 custom zombies, I think he's been doing. Or no, modded zombies. And then I was like, well, you know, just check, because, you know, I want to keep making progress on everything. That's why, and Terraria is going to be, like, the longest lasting thing, because we only do it on weekends, so I saw a chance, so I thought, hey, let's see if we can just do some Terraria today, if he wants to. And he was down. So we're going to play Terraria. With Mason. I'm feeling a little laid back today because I spent 4 hours in the hospital emergency room today, and it was not my favorite thing. But yeah, there's not really. Never got my other monitor set up, which I hate. I'm tabbing around a lot. Alright, first thing I'm gonna do is look into summoning potions. But yeah, we're gonna play Terraria with Mason. Not much to say. Let's just get into it. I have nothing to say. It's just a weird day. Just spending 4 hours in an emergency room with a splitting agony hell headache is not my favorite. But hopefully it's a step towards feeling better. Hopefully. Alright, so last time we did this, my internet was acting up, so we were in the middle of... I was making an artificial corruption, and I don't remember what Mason was doing. Why do I feel so slow? Oh yeah, I'm used to having boats. I guess I'll just continue. Oh right, we're working on Ankh shields. But also I want summoning potions, but I feel like that's a long way off.
Summon these nuts?
When?
No.
Okay.
You're not online.
Oh. Oh, Blood Moon. Is this a problem? What's that originally from? I've only seen that in like memes and like the clip, Lethal Company clip where the little fucker steals his elevator ladder.
The hell is going on?
Again.
I feel like I do know, but I don't remember.
Just look it up. Let's see. Yippee original. Yippee original audio.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen the original.
Oh, it's the Fortnite and cola thing. I got this Fortnite and the cola. It like says it in like not English. Yippee! Yippee! Which is just fair enough, dude. The kid's excited. I have no problem with it. Playing some Fortnite, some cola. Playing some cola and drinking a Fortnite.
I love drinking a Fortnite.
I've tried to play Fortnite the other day. I did some solos in that game.
Game fucking sucks.
It's like it was like my two big issues, and I've talked about this on stream, so I won't go super in depth again. But like my two big issues were like my game lagged. Like I have a very high end PC right now. I mean, not like a super like high end, but like it's pretty freaking good. I can run like everything on max settings, no problem. Like I stream Baldur's Gate on max setting with no lag. Like, it's a pretty good computer.
I think.
And then Fortnite runs like utter ass on even medium. Like on medium, I was chugging.
I think it used to play fine, but the fucking all the updates and shit, they can't keep up.
Yeah, that's what I think I said that to William. I was like, they probably, or no, maybe it was Micah. With all the updates they do, like they probably have no time to refine anything. So it runs like shit. And then the other thing that turned me off was they have like bending from Avatar.
Oh yeah.
Water bending is so fucking overpowered.
Yeah, I heard that.
It is disgusting. Like, it is insane. And I was just like, and I got like, I just kept getting like even I was using it and it was just gross. Everyone I used it against me just blisclacked me. It was awful. And I was just like, I don't want to play this.
7.1 audio thing makes it a lot easier to hear things.
I don't know what that means.
It's a setting on my headset that I can turn on. It's supposed to, like, make audio better, I guess, I think. I don't know.
Like, more focus on people, or just it balances it all better?
I think it balances it better.
Alright, well, I guess since it's going to be impossible to do this anyway, I'll just see if I can get this black lens. So I need a black lens with the kites underneath. Okay, wyverns. Like, my spiders just kind of disappear sometimes. That's also pretty cool. Okay. I fucking hate the summoning AI. Help me! The wyvern just picked up my money and fucking left. Ugh.
Gotten, like, almost a plat from just this night. Yeah, just okay. Summoning potions. I need a black lens. Something. I don't know. Yeah, usually Terraria, for my side, Terraria is usually a weekend game, but I saw an opportunity, and I think among the 4 or 5, maybe 6 things I want to finish before I stop streaming, Terraria is going to take the Terraria and Calamity Mod are going to take the longest because it's only weekends. So I saw the opportunity, so I done took it. Or at least saw if Mason was interested. Cause like Warframe, I'm kind of there. There's like a few quests, but like, you know, one quest a stream. Like I'm doing what I assume is the longest quest in the game right now, and that's gonna be like one more stream. So like, I don't know. There's nothing to take. Is everything free in that game, or?
Pretty much, yeah. It's like I've heard it described, and I agree. It's like pay to rush. Like you can pay, and cosmetics. Like you can pay to like build things a little quicker if you want to. I never have, and you can also like I the only thing I pay for is like I think I like the company that makes it, Digital Extremes, a lot. So I bought like one of those packs where it just gives you stuff. And you get like in-game currency and some items, because I just wanted to support them. Because I have like 400 hours in Warframe and I love it, and it's free. So like,
Fair.
So like, you don't have to pay for anything, and there's even ways in-game to get the premium currency if you like. From my understanding, there's like prime items, which are just like golden versions of items, but that are also stronger. And then, like, if you have extra pieces and you can't do anything with them, you can trade them for... So I don't know exactly how it works, but you basically trade other people for platinum. And you can make platinum without ever having to actually buy it if you wanted to. Which I think is cool.
That's how most games should be.
Yeah. Like if you, I don't know, I think Warframe is the best free-to-play model I've ever seen. Like it was kind of like how when I played Baldur's Gate, except Baldur's Gate was $80. Like I bought the deluxe edition of Baldur's Gate at the end of my playthrough because I was like, I don't mind giving these guys more money because that was how good Baldur's Gate was to me. I was like, I'll buy more stuff. I'll get some cool cosmetics and also support the devs. It's kind of the same thing with like, that's like, if you just build good faith, well,
yeah,
people will just pay you, like, gladly to see you thrive because they like what you do. That's why
do you still have, Astaria, I think is his name? Like, do I still have
white hair guy?
What do you mean? To play?
Like, is he like in the party still, or is he?
Oh,
like...
yeah. No, he's been dead for pretty much our whole campaign because William killed him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I killed him too.
Yeah, William killed him like very early on.
But
first of many victims.
Only if he didn't, because he won voice actor of the year or some shit.
Yeah, I've heard that he's like a really, like, people love his character, but he's the
Yeah.
I didn't get to experience literally any of it because he was dead for my whole campaign. But that's fine because that means that whenever I could have done a whole playthrough again when I was done, but William wanted me to play other stuff, so I guess I did that. But like, I still have, like, we left Gale at the start of the game because he was being like a smug weirdo, and we were like, you know what, Gale, go away, dude. So we didn't experience his story at all. He just never showed up. And then Asterion got murdered, and then another character got murdered, and then another character got murdered. That was less of a main character, but she's still dead as shit. So it's cool. There's still so much to experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just saying, like, these companies always try to, like YouTube with its, like, ad blocker bullshit, where it's, like, trying to, like, be like, hey, please use an ad blur, please don't watch the ads, please. And it's like, if you just, like, didn't do this, like, obtuse bullshit and, like, harass your consumers, I would just buy YouTube Premium to support you if you weren't fuckers.
Yeah.
Like, if you build the good faith, and then people will want to support you. Oh, thank God. Thank you. Like, it's the same, it was almost the same with Discord, but then they started being kind of weird. But, like, Discord...
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck is going on with Discord.
Discord, I was for the longest time, I was like, when I have money, I'm gonna buy Nitro just to support them. And then they started being a little weird. Like, Discord's doing some weirdo shit now, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that anymore, but, like, they have, like, weird pop-ups, and their YouTube page is certified cringe. Feels a little pandery. I don't know. I think they changed CEOs or something. I don't know. Something happened there. And I was kind of just like, yeah, it seems like they're going in a bad money-hungry direction. And also, like, the $15 profile art. Bro, no one's looking at your profile.
No one looks at your profile, and then why
also,
is it
it's overpriced
$15?
as fuck. Like, hold on.
Like $2 is that was worth.
Yes, let me hold up. Can I look at the Nitro shop? Valorant, a hint of clove, 16 Canadian, 15.99 for some moths and, like, it's like, it looks fine. It's $16, and if you have Nitro, it's still $12.
If I spent like a month or two on, like, just straight graphics design, I could probably make that.
Like, it's fine, but, like, it's just like it's not even that. It's not even about what it looks like. It's just like I don't want a profile thing. Like, no one looks at people's Discord profiles, I assume.
What even are you?
It's working on the artificial corruption.
Oh.
It's to the right. Except it's very hard to destroy walls.
Black lenses in the materials.
Oh, fantastic. Coca-Colastic.
I guess I can just make it quick, actually.
It's fine. Don't I want to do it? I want to do it. It is my birthright.
Join the blue.
Yeah, I'm gonna write in the chat. Summoning potions. Hopefully I forget. New summon. Make this biome. And then right now I go fishing. And then hopefully I'll remember to look at the chat later.
Where are you, the boy?
Sky Lakes and surface. I guess it's probably easier to get from Sky Lakes, but
I don't think so. I think it's just... I feel like surface is probably easier. I think there's less unique stuff, actually. I think. Because Sky Lakes... Oh, no, wait, that might be a quest fish I'm thinking of. I don't know.
It's one.
Starfish. I want a boober bob.
It's definitely helped my fishing a lot.
Yeah, the 10 fishing power is a good amount.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
There, easy enough.
What the hell?
What the heck? My hand! Man, nothing too crazy.
Oh, I got a wall anchor. Another.
Do mining potions help with the walls? No, I guess not. Wait, what do building potions do? That's just replacing, right? Or will they help me annihilate my foes? Foes being walls.
Guy dead? No. Where is he?
No, he's back.
Oh, he's outside. Where do you get a megaphone from?
Fairies. Or pixies. Which are... We're gonna have to make an artificial fucking...
Oh.
Ugh. Increases placement, speed, and range. No, it's like the opposite. I want to destroy better. They should make wall bombs. Like bombs that only affect back walls.
Hmm.
Oh, there's my money. I don't know where that went. I think they have scarab bomb. No, that's not the same thing though. It's just like completely different. And
So what do we still need for Ox?
I think the last thing we're working on is we were getting the corruption for vitamins. You need it. You were working on a
going
pocket
for
mirror.
something. Oh, right.
Danny Moon. Ugh. Hold up. I gotta go look this up before I commit this much time to this. Does corruption spread through walls? Depending on... Okay, does it spread through dirt walls? The only materials that can be corrupted are... dirt still won't count as corrupted. Wait. Just...
Do you have any sand? Oh, yeah, there's. Gonna make some more bottles.
Okay, sounds like dirt does not get affected. So I built a 6 wide gap around everything, and I hope that's enough.
Okay.
And then I will just throw some corruption juice around. And we should have a corruption soon. Where's my money? Give me my money back. I want my money back.
Just give me my money.
Chili's money back ribs.
Just give me my money.
It says my money is here, but my money is nowhere to be seen. Hello?
My money is funny.
What's so funny about it? What the game? I'm being deceived? It says it's right beside me?
Do we have any vertebra?
I don't know. Part of me wants to believe that I will not fall apart at the seams. That I will learn from the cut when I bleed. That I'm a tank, I'm a goddamn machine. Alright, well, I spent all the corruption powder.
Not that I see. Are there any more
Yes!
crystals?
We have 215 crystal shards of that.
No, I want to go destroy some more crimson hearts because we need more vertebra.
That doesn't give us vertebra.
The brain will.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't it?
It drops ore and tissue.
Shit.
I have to make the biome. Oh, yeah.
Well, the crimson will, or corruption will be fine as well.
Oh,
You just use that.
I
I just want to make more battle potions.
Yeah. Mock. Yeah. And I need 2 regular lenses as well. How funny. Well, you know what? Actually, I don't want that. I'm never using that. Give me 2 lens ores. They'd be in here. Nope, they'd be in here. Nope, they'd be in here. Correct! Jump, you flubby slubby.
Don't call him that.
I call him whatever I want. Alright, optic staff. I'm eating optic ass. Spider, go away. Let's go reforge this frat child. Unpleasant. Damage? No. Lazy? No. Oh my god, these are fucking terrible. Oh my god, I'm in the... Oh! What the... These are horrible. How much money do I got 4 platinum. We're sending this. Demonic, send him. Alright, these guys don't beat serious ass. I mean, there's no way.
I gotta do a lot better than...
They better. They
had.
look like a swarm of murder. They're scary to even witness and behold.
Ow!
Okay. Alright, well, let's... that. So we need... Do we need blindfolds still?
Yeah.
Which was mummies?
I guess so.
I'm
Makes
gonna
sense,
teleport
anyway.
somewhere, they all burst out of me. Alright, boys, kill somebody. So I guess we could blood moon in a desert.
Yeah.
Strange plants. Get him up. You know what?
Gladius!
I'm gonna look into luck potions. See what that's about.
Let's forget daggers are a thing in this game.
Yeah, I think everyone does. For good reason.
Nobody uses those.
For high treason. Alright, summoning potions also another thing. Variegated lard fish. Truly no idea. Have the same problem every time. Lesser luck potion. We need a white pearl, black pearl, or a pink pearl. Huh?
Pearl?
And ladybugs? Where do you get pearls? I'm going to go explore the ocean. Must be like something ocean-esque. I mean, like, you know, a little lobster. Like yeah.
Clams or some shit.
What is tulip shell? There's a chest with flippers in it. Oh, my mama, I be breathing.
You don't need a metal detector, right?
No, we've got several of those. We're definitely good. I'm gonna get this strange plant pumping as well. It is gonna be something cool as Mirage Die.
Strange plant condom?
Yeah.
Oh!
Mirage Die ain't it. At least not with this setup.
Ugh. What are the chances on this drop? I've killed so many already.
You are not Mickey. What the fuck? Alright, I want the shine potions. That's what I want to do. Do I remember to make shine potions off?
Finally.
Okay, progress. Let's go blink root, the moon glow, bottled water. That sounds like a shine potion to me. Wrong!
What was even with the pocket? The blindfold?
Yes. You need day blooms for shine potion and per blue mushrooms. That was way off. I was gonna say we should have a pussy full of. Okay, we have 1,000 of these too. Okay, wait a minute, we're balling on shine potions. All right, I'm never gonna be not illuminated.
Oh, there are 4? 4.
I made a lot of shine potions if you want any. I'm tired of not being able to see.
Oh, dude, I can see. My swings usually just let me see anyway.
I didn't ask. Actually.
I didn't say.
I didn't say anything. You're weird. You're hearing things.
Yeah, I guess desert.
Coral. That doesn't sound like one. Are you a material? You are. Okay. Well, it's probably just a pile of coral.
Material girl!
Seashell?
A material girl?
Seashell?
Seashells by the seashore.
But Bethany, I'm a material girl.
Ah!
What the hell? There must be a decent way to get these.
Or I guess blindfolds would drop from bats. They make it darker, too?
Let me just look it up. I'm a materialist. I'm a materialist. I take some introns and I put them on the motherfucker. Shell pile, coral stone block, reef block, Capricorn helmet, embodiment of the star's majesty, shiny.
Try fighting a boss. Yeah,
I'm gonna own a little eyeball. I'm not even gonna help him. I'm not even gonna help him.
what's going on? My keyboard's lighting up.
Oh no. They're like hurting him and like on top of his steez. That's true, that's true.
Hold on, I kinda wanna see. Oh my god! Keyboard shows the position of him.
What, cheating?
It's like it glows red for where he's going.
That's weird. No.
That's very
strange. Okay, I gotta set my third monitor back up. This is too clunk. I thought I could do without it, but it is useful. Onk. I always forget how to spell onk. It's a weirdo word.
Unk.
Alright, counter curse mantra. No, let's. Refractor shades, blindfold. Blindfolds are from. Blindfolds are from. Why doesn't it say what drops it?
Oops, I accidentally just typed in blindfold.
Corrupt slimes, slimelings, shadow slimes, crim slimes, dark mummies, and blood mummies. Oh, so we need a freaking corrupt desert. Or just wait till the it's tragic. Okay. Okay, well, let's look at something else then. Well, because we can wait for the corruption to fill in, and then we can start doing that. Oh shit, we're gonna need a hollow.
Oh.
Need hollow seeds. Damn, baby, that's some hollow seed you got there. Thanks, I ate it myself.
I'll eat you.
What? You don't think you can eat me?
Where do we put the? Is there a trophies chest?
This misc. It's usually I had other plans for building, but I'm like, what we have is functional, and it's fine. Steve's going to London.
Okay, so what else do we need?
We need.
So Bazaar bandage is done. Plan. What is the plan again? Map and.
We have the plan. We have 2 of them. I have one. I have stuff on me just for ease. We need 2 vitamins, 2 blindfolds, 2 megaphones. I think that's it.
Right.
So we need an artificial hollow. The corruption needs to spread. That's it actually, because the corruption, the corrupt slimes will drop the Bahingi, and then the corruptors will drop the Dahingi, and then the Mixies will drop the Blixie. I guess we need a hollow anyway, so we can fight the freaking Empress of Plight.
All right.
Hey, could you sign this griefing wafer? No, what the hell? Oh, he's griefing me. Alright, well, I say let's summon a blood moon so I could get some hollow seeds. Wait, can I? Hold up, I'm Googling again. This game is making my wiener smaller. Hollow seed. Hallowed seeds. Purchased from the Dryad. No, she just has them. Okay. See, that's why it's weird that like you have to get rid of the hollow for this achievement too, because like she sells the hollow. She's shilling for this shit. She's a paid government plant. Alright, where's a good spot for the hollow? I guess that's so disjointed and awkward.
Or flat, I think.
I forgot there's crimson growing out there. I'm gonna go out to where that crimson's growing and cut it off. I need a mining potion. I mean, feel free to assist. It should be quick. Either way. It's cutting off the edges so it can't spread. I think it's... I just did 7 blocks, but... hopefully...
Oh, it's just 1.
No, I think it didn't jump very far. Big enough for anything to spawn? Just zombies.
Why does it always say there's money here?
Yeah, no, that's where I died. It says this. Oh, wait, is it? Wait, where are you?
There is 55 cents here.
Oh, no, never mind. It's not where
It's just under the house. I had a money icon just sitting there.
Yeah, I don't know. It says my money from when I died earlier is just down there, but it's like, no, I don't know what's going on with it.
It's just this.
I try hard to write a cool song, so I punch a baby in the womb.
Don't do it!
I can do whatever I want. Tear them up, boys. Okay, here we go. Oh,
Maybe we should make that...
Wait, hold up. Oh, we accidentally locked our way into a Crimson Desert? Okay, well,
oh, yeah. I did destroy it at some point, so...
It apparently has... Well, didn't get all of it, which I guess worked out.
So.
fickle nature of this achievement has worked in our favor.
I'm good. Fickle.
Fickling dickling.
My cock.
What?
Did not grab a mining potion.
I just drank the one
Okay.
I was trying to give you. You should try these. They need a new NPC called Corruptolio, who loves to live in the crumption.
God, why is it humming so loud?
Hello, sorry for bothering you.
I want you to eat my fucking ass.
Viewers, followers use chatbots.
I want you to die, honestly.
It's a robot, so you know. Oh, I went too low because I was banning.
A silly guy.
It's not a guy. I don't think you understand.
A silly little fellow.
No, you're confused.
Is that 7? Yeah.
Good enough.
Do they even spawn during the day?
I think so. But if not, I don't know. It's blood moon and
Oh my god, there's another black lens.
yay. Black lens. Boom dum dum ba dum.
Black.
Actually, maybe build. Let me dig this one out from the top so I don't get sand in my mouth. I don't know if there's any red corruption banner we can use to spread this out. I assume you can't plant seeds. How this works. Yeah, is it large enough? Wait, what's going on over here? Oh, this is also very corrupt. Well, no. This is where your evil stops. This is good, actually. This gets a bunch of sand, too.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch. There's definitely enough.
Okay, well... Oh, yeah, okay, never mind. Let's cut it off over here. Damn, he chunky.
No! He's cheating!
Ain't good enough? I don't think we need to go that low. Yeah, that's fine. Let's go until I hit the wall. Wow! I'm in a hole! My god! A hole at this hour?
Whole new world.
What? Prince Ali, fabulous, he's got a gun, run. As long as 10 regular men, definitely. He faced the galloping odds!
I guess I'll see you in court!
He doesn't say that.
He says that every day. He's a lawyer. Aladdin.
And Naga people is why he got a cute rabbi with 15 elephants and a gun. He has a gun, I'm serious. Run, run, run. He has a gun, I'm serious. Run away. He's going to shoot you all. Ha ha. Make way.
Get out of here, slime. Now it's a peninsula.
You're a peninsula. Bitch! Alright. Gotta do a little more at the bottom, but before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and stop what's going on over here first.
This is all dessert and you can't have it.
Desert. Ice 'em, boys.
Let's get some dirt bombs and fill this back in later. Nice. Might as well do it now. I gotta teleport back out too.
My poop bombs.
That's funny. Are you aware that it smells like... Hey man, it smells like Teen Spirit in here. And then you go, what's Teen Spirit? And I go, bang, ding, nice.
It's a good
Like
one.
up dog.
What's up, dog?
Ding, 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 bang.
What the hell?
I assume I need dirt to make a dirt bomb. I really do.
Drop it, pussy.
Drop it. The hell's down here? Oh, this is where I was sharding. Wait, no, it wasn't. What the hell is this? Dude, their bombs are sick.
Thanks.
Sick of me appropriating their culture. Let me finish.
Yeah.
Alright, vertical is a little rough. Well, that's not that bad. You just gotta be a little patient.
I got a mummy shirt.
Mummy shart?
Mummy shirt.
Why did I drop a bunch? What is that? Do they push each other up? No, they just kind of overlap.
Oh yeah, see the flying thing spawn.
They don't drop vitamins.
You know? Oh.
Chimeras? Floaty grosses drop vitamins.
Oh.
Those are the ones that are only underground.
It's coming.
Seaman at this hour?
One of you motherfuckers drop it.
Put the money in the bag.
What is it?
Sir, I'm over here.
Hello. Sticky dirt bomb. Sticky dirt bomb.
Stinky.
Gotta finish what I sharded.
Poopy fart smeller.
Please don't say that. That offends my Christian sensibilities.
I'll smell you later.
Enough.
Beep, 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 beep.
Okay, brains. Activate brain. Don't need this, don't need this.
I have way too much garbage in my inventory, but it's not garbage, that's why I did my inventory. Duh!
I got a dark shard.
Gross. What do I look like, a Dow of Powhaver? Yo! Disgusting. Yeah.
Herplin!
I'm doing it. I'm really filling a damn hole. This is a great addition to the game. I don't know if I've ever used dirt bombs before. They're very helpful.
Bombs?
They do clip into each other and then don't work sometimes, so you gotta be patient. I wish they push, like I wish if they like push each other up or something. Though then I guess if they only push each other up, then that's a whole new issue. If you wanted to build or fill something in left or right. Okay, it feels nice to have a summon that feels like it's gonna do its damn job. Every time someone appears on my screen, they really go out of their way to really huh? It just doesn't do anything?
How many blue slimes are...
I just crashed my car, and it got me thinking of you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I want to listen to Goofy sing Dance Gavin Dance songs. I'm Gooby Goblin in the Maybach bobbling in the Blooby Jaylings. Or something like that.
I don't know who that is.
I'm Blooby Blobbing. I'm licking a baby and punching his snooter.
No.
I don't think that doesn't sound right.
It'd be better if we made it flat.
I don't know. Maybe for slimes it might matter. I think it's because it's off screen as either desert or or normal biome. I think it just takes time to
The
spread
slimes are taking shit.
It's time to spread more, I think. Though I do wish I made it a little bigger. I kind of went small now that I'm looking at it. You can also plant crimson seeds on this side, which you can go grub. What the hell? I wanted something else. I can't remember what the hell else I wanted. Break the grass. And then break the targets.
Another dark shard.
Shard of Darkness on the PS2. Alright, well, it'll spread a little quicker. It's tedious, though.
Get a little thicker.
When? Oh, we almost... Oh, I forgot to do the underground part. That could have been like a real problem. What?
Damn, girl. Where'd you get that ass? The Krusty Krab?
No one says that.
I know. It's mine.
That's too bad. Can I plant a seed on the bottom of a block? I can. Oh, it's spread from the damn bottom. I hate these dogs. Shut up.
Eat.
One sec.
There's a lot of mummies. He's gonna go eat the dogs. That was him farting out the dog.
No barking, please, I'm streaming. No barking, please, I'm streaming.
That's him shitting the dog out.
Oh,
Blood moon. Good.
I don't know how true this is. I think corruption actually spreads faster during a blood moon. Maybe. I might be making that up. It sounds like something I've heard before. But that doesn't mean it's true. I know I didn't build like that, like 7 blocks apart, but it's probably fine. I know go to the purple.
Getting some vertebra.
Just see how it's doing. I think it's probably better for us to group up. For maximum spawns. I just want to see if... Oh yeah, there's a corruptor. Okay. It is happening.
What the flip is going on?
Inappropriate. Alright, let me... I guess it would help for things not to get stuck if we build it made a little flatter.
Yeah. So I started cutting it out.
Part of me wants to believe that I will not come apart at the seams. That I will learn from the cut when I bleed.
Boil!
That I will boil. That I'm a tank, I'm a goddamn machine. Which is fitting because he's kind of the tank in Kingdom Hearts. Kind of. You don't really, I mean, barely. He has a shield, though. Oh, the blood mummies are flowing? Didn't get what we wanted, but that was pretty exciting to have.
I would just like to be blind.
Is that so wrong? I just hate seeing. I want a Donald the Goofy Duck to cover the entirety of Dance Gavin Dance's album Jackpot Juicer. I want him to go, it's a miracle that I got this far. It's a goddamn miracle that I got this far.
I just want to.
What?
I just want him.
Oh, thanks for
like
it's a miracle that I got this far. Thanks for the subscription, Spencer. Appreciate it. I really like the idea of Goofy singing Swallowed by Eternity by Dance Gavin Dance. It's a goddamn miracle that I got this far. Thank you for the subscription. Appreciate you. Also, I feel like I was thinking about it in the car today. Then I feel like I didn't acknowledge enough that you spent 100,000 channel points on that reward yesterday, which is notable. Which is just a notable thing to mention. I feel like I kind of blew past that, which is just an absurd amount of points to have in the first place. Oh, it's herping! Me when the herp is perp?
Summons seem to be doing good.
Huh?
The summons seem to be doing good.
Yeah, they're nasty to have.
You're lucky it's on cooldown, or I do it again to prove a point. It's the point that I got 4 dark shards. It's the point that I need more channel point rewards. I get like, I'm not gonna be, I don't know how long I'm gonna be streaming for. The thing is, like, when I stop streaming, I have other ideas. Like, I still like streaming and I still want to do it. It's more about how often and what I'm doing. Like, the focus will change on from just playing games. Like, I have an idea that I think would be really fun to do on stream, but I haven't really workshopped it. But I think it'd be fun. It's a miracle that I got this far. Boil! He says boil. In Kingdom Sharps. Vertebra.
It's tongued by sharks?
Goofy gets tongued by sharks in Kingdom Hearts. It's a goddamn miracle that I got this far.
Have I only gotten, like, 8 vertebrae?
I was just thinking, how do I only have 4? But I guess they don't drop them. They only drop them.
Blindfold!
Okay, 1 down. It's working, it's jerking, it's twerk. Oh, mid-grind! Oh, let's go!
Oh.
Blast up, we're done. Okay, let's go to Purple Corruption quick. Let's just... We need 2 items. Purple Corruption. We need 2 items from there, so let's see if we squeeze out as much...
A money trough.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Where is it again?
Just teleport to me.
Oh.
I think it's... Yeah, it's large enough.
Yeah.
Speaking of, like, Jackpot Juicy, that's a great album. I fucking love that album. I want to look up weirdest Dance Gavin Dance lyrics. They got some weirdo lyrics. Oh, perfect. Don't be tardy for my leaky Barbie TV party pee in the park.
What?
Jonathan Mess writes some weird ass lyrics. But, like, I'm kind of with it.
Another blindfold. But I just came here.
Oh, I didn't... Oh, yeah, right, because there's the other mummies, right. Oh, yeah, I guess we didn't even need the red crimson. Because then we get it... Right, that's literally... I said that earlier, that we can get 2 things here. But we needed it for... I don't know, I just all got mixed up in my head. I couldn't wait to tap into the brain of a cat and let him know he's my little baby meow meow boo. That's a great song. Up in the casino. Well, ain't no doubt I'm better let it out. I got another blindfold. Since 2005, I've been living a lie. I ain't even a man, I'm just a cat in disguise.
I've been eating pie.
Since 2005, I've been smoking weed. Kangaroo cracks its dick in half?
What?
What song is that from? I knew the last one. A penis wide that tower high, a penis wide that tower high is coming at your feet. The story's old, the butthole full of cancer-spreading meat. True.
Another blindfold.
Clip clop, horse comes in and beats your parents up.
What?
Look at me. I
don't know if this is true.
These are real lyrics. These are a post about people's favorite weird Dance Gavin Dance lyrics. These are real. And they're absurd. Another blindfold. Why the fuck did we ever bother with the crimson?
It was so much worse.
I need these priests to stop molesting your kid's back door. It's fucking disgusting, man. I mean, he's not even veiled in metaphor. He's just like, hey, don't do that.
Damn.
I'm gonna just pop another blood moon tonight, and for now we'll just, cream!
Get jiggy with it.
Oh, we can make the next part, the reflective shades. Check this out. The boulder!
Monster lasagna.
Alright. Another piece.
Oh, you can make leather in this. I thought it was just...
Another piece bites the bust.
Yeah, you make leather.
Oh. Can you make boots with those?
No, I don't know. I don't know nothing.
I know you can in Calamity, but I don't know if you can in this, and I don't want to waste... Well, it's not that much of a waste.
I'm gonna farm it now if we
That's
really
fine.
need to. Alright, well, I guess I'll go make a kring, kring.
No! What the fuck is this? This is a shirt and pants. That's all you can make.
Brain, robot Wang, got a slang through the tang. I came to show you my sack. You're sitting on a dildo pile. That's why your ass hurts. This is fucking facts.
Okay. Shades.
Riding a rhino pico de gallo.
Okay.
Riding a rhino pico de gallo.
Oh, we did.
Okay, where do I put
Oh, we did have vertebra. It was in a different chest. I thought it would be in materials.
You really fucked that one up.
Fuck you, buddy.
No. I think I'll just chop off part of the hollow. I don't know. Where do I put this? I'm in the jungle.
Alright, I made 21 battle potions.
I'll do it where the old corruption was. I'm just gonna do that. It's a miracle that I got this hard.
Mm-hmm.
Me having intercourse in the old folks' home.
I love fucking...
Hold up. I just was in a hollow biome for a second. Oh, well, apparently we didn't do a very good job destroying this because it is kind of here.
What do you mean we?
Oh no, wait, no, I stopped, right? Because or no, is this when I stopped? I don't know. Also, you don't get your Crimson came back too, so don't start with me.
I'm gonna buy the panda.
You can do whatever you want, you're grown up.
A full plat. But he's so cool. Oh my god.
What do you mean, buddy, he's so cool? I didn't say no, do whatever you want.
I know, I did buy him.
He's not even that cool.
Look at him. Look at him. He rides like a bamboo stick.
He rides like a bamboo stick?
I don't know if it's a bamboo stick. I don't know what it is.
Honestly, I don't even care. This is just fucking exist here. You spread as much as it goddamn wants. I'm not gonna cut it off. I'm just gonna build more ground for it to spread on, if anything. All I need is somebody to spread on.
Maybe we could even grab some dirt bombs.
Sorry?
And just throw them around here. Grab some dirt bombs!
What, a beef outlet dirt bomb or a custard?
Mustard!
Mom.
Mush!
Remember Moosh from Zelda? From Zelda video game? I can't remember the name of video game. What's that game called? Oracle of Treason.
I don't think I ever played that. Why is there a boulder in the house?
He's chilling. Any further questions? He's chilling. He's a welcome guest. I invited him my shelf.
Bomb. Is the last thing we need this? No, we need one more.
Megaphone.
What else is it?
That's why I'm building the hollow. Why are there meteor heads spawning? Where the hell is this?
Oh, I was thinking of vitamins.
There it is. Okay, I gotta blisklick this meteor. Spencer, I hope you're having a lovely day. Sorry, I'm terrible at talking to chat. I hope your Gooden session is immaculate. I don't know.
If you're not mewing right now,
The island's
you're
gonna
worthless.
blow up with you on it. Alright, definitely gotta get rid of these meteors so we can stop inhibiting our spawns.
Hip, hip, hip.
Get up, come on, get down with the sickness. Get up, come on, get down with the sickness. I was gonna make a joke about Goofy singing that, but that 1000% exists.
Goofy!
Open up your hate and let it flow into me!
Oh, that's not where I meant to throw it.
Man, this is the stink that is control over me. Oh, Goofy sings the Three's Company theme song. I have these simple requests. What is happening? Are you being home invasioned?
I don't think so.
There's still enough meat to spawn a meat?
Pixie!
Okay. I think, yeah, the meteor...
This one pixie is gonna give me the megaphone. Fuck.
The meteor was taking some spawns, for sure. I got rid of enough, and then I think it also just needed more area. It was not spreading enough. Oh, that looks like shit!
I love shitting.
Oh, the music here is beaut. Taffel. Okay, that sucked to hear. The hell is this? Me eating a big bean burrito.
Why are you doing that?
Eating.
Beans.
Hey, Hormst! Hey, Hormst!
Give me the apple. Why do I hear a pixie?
Because one of them spawned and is all in the game.
I couldn't see it.
Moron. I started Titanfall. On yesterday's stream, I was talking about how I'm going to start Titanfall 2 that night, and I was excited. I did. I am an hour. I've well, let's see. I have 86 minutes of playtime. It's all in the gauntlet thing at the start of the game because I'm trying to get a better time, and it's hard. It's like, you know, Modern Warfare or Call has like their thing where they're like, you run through it and then it'll be like, you should play on this difficulty because you're sick with the sauce.
Oh yeah.
I'm doing that, and I'm doing it until it says I'm a master and puts me on the hardest difficulty. It's really fucking hard though, because it's not like in COD you just run through it and it's about shooting. In this you also have to do like movement stuff because it's Titanfall. So you're doing like slide boost jumps and like wall jumping, and also you have to shoot at accurately while also constantly like it monitors your miles per hour. It tells you how fast you're going at miles per hour to give like. So it's like it's putting emphasis on speed. And it's fucking hard. And if you miss people, which is easy to do because you're running super fast, or jumping or flying through the goddamn sky, you lose time. So you gotta kill everybody. And like my best time is 35 seconds, and the top of the leaderboard, like the in-game like story leaderboard, not like a real life leaderboard, is like 25 seconds, and I'm like, I don't know how the fuck. Like how the
I guess is that what you're supposed to beat then?
I don't know, but I assume if I get under like 30 seconds, they'll be like, you can play as master mode. But I mean, I could just set it myself, and I'm gonna make the game do it. But holy fuck, it's hard. Yeah, while we wait for pixies to spawn, I'm gonna pull up the footage of me just spam retrying.
And I'll pull up.
And you make one mistake, and it's curtains.
I'm going to grab battle potions.
Like, I don't know if I mean, people on my side might notice it's in my favorites of 2024 folder. It's not actually in the video yet because I haven't played the game yet, but it's like I'm also just like not good. I'm like really bad at FPS games, so we're out here learning. Like this is terrible. You can't come in from this low. What is he gonna do? What is this? Who is he shooting at? And then you reset the gauntlet, and then you do that for 45 minutes. It's gonna get better, I think.
implement new strategies. Miss. Dive, miss. Oh. And I did this for an exceptional amount of time. Just all I did last night. I mean, not all last night, but for like a good amount of time. My best is so hard. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to get 25 seconds. And then you make one mistake and it's game over and you're done and you suck ass and no one loves you.
Fair.
Well, let's see this run where I got this 35. Like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to cut 10 seconds off my best time. I'm doing my best, and it sucks. And I suck. But I'm gonna figure it out. This is when I was testing. I kept noticing the ghost was like, it looked like it was bumping off people's heads, so I was trying to figure out what was up with that. But I think it was just shooting them. And I thought of some ways to make it a little faster when I played earlier today for a little bit before I went to the hospital. But I really had to implement them smoothly. Also, sometimes I just am terrible at shooting the gun. Oh, vile.
He came.
In summation, that's what I've spent. Like, I'm like interested in the Titanfall 2 story. It sounds interesting. But I'm like, I'm in the gaunt. I'm gaunting. And I have no intention of leaving until I'm done doing what I'm meant to do. But like, also, it feels nice to play, and I'm excited. I haven't even got to the Titan part. I'm just falling a lot.
What's happening?
I'm dead. I guess Blood Moon? I'll go get the thing. So we can get some little frunkers. Can you imagine we British eating tea and dunking crumpers?
I quit them.
Forgot what I'm doing. Blood Moon. Oh, we didn't fish. Time is
Right.
We got time. We got like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Jungle surface, jungle surface, jungle surface. Move, 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 soldier, move! Where do we fish?
Is it that way?
I don't know. Hey,
Is this big enough, you think?
Give it a go. Should be wide enough. I think we have pretty good fishing setups in general. Oh yeah, there's one.
Frog leg!
You can have it.
Okay.
I accidentally gave you the crushed fish.
Oh.
Beep beep, boop bop, beep boop, sneeborp.
No, the one that goes beep beep bop boop beep beep.
Need a high test fishing line. I'm gonna commit some fucking crimes. What the hell? Great. Oh, I got it.
Crate?
Grapes. Crustography? Oh, it's a picture.
It's racist.
I think it could be.
Bunnyfish
Oh,
trophy.
wait. I also got an angler earring. Do I have one of those already? I don't. That's actually a good pickup. Tight.
I already have one of those too.
Wow. I don't care.
I got both. I got both. Ooh, angler pants. I've got the set.
Is there set bonus?
Decreased enemy spawn rate.
Ooh, that's actually pretty nice. Alright, I'm starting the Blood Moon.
Wait! I'm fishing!
What?
I'm a fisherman. Okay.
Where did all of my summons go? They just gave up. Do I have a fan on? Actually, I'm just gonna take this sweater off. I'm boiling.
Boil.
I'm boiling!
Vitamins!
Oh, nice. Oh, I went to the hollow. Oh, this is fun. Alright, so 1 more vitamins, 2 more megaphones, and I think we're both onked up. I'm going to take my sweater off and not die while I do it.
He's getting naked! Oh, there's some shit. Leave me alone!
Now, you may notice I'm wearing the same shirt as yesterday. Look, I spent all day in the hospital, okay? Give me a fucking break. You don't go to the ER because you're capable, okay?
Capable of receiving these hands.
I beat you up.
I would eat you!
Nice. I got enough pixies.
What do you think an average human,
Correct!
what the fuck happened to that wyvern? Oh, never mind, killed it. I still had a lot of health. What do you think an average human is like calorie-wise?
What? 8.
Like
1,000.
Like it, Probably.
I don't know, probably a lot. I feel like it takes a lot of energy from your body to break down all that gargantuan slumber sauce.
I mean, there's so much. Well, I guess it depends on body types and shit, but like, there's so much fat.
What?
I got another vitamin.
Nice. Not too many pixies spawning, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll get there eventually. A shackle, yes!
Whoa!
Oh my god, I pulled,
Is that a guess or is that a fact?
125,000 calories per human, on average. This guy's some kind of idiot, I'm serious. Don't forget to clap for plants.
God, fuck off, wyverns. Leave me alone.
That's what I'd be when I look it up. That doesn't make any sense. How was a person... No, that makes no sense. Eating a person is 125,000 calories? No. That's nonsense. Right. What are you fucking talking about?
What do you mean? Like, a burger is like 2K.
No? What the fuck? What kind of burger? What kind of shitty burgers are you eating? You're gonna die. Burger's not 2,000 calories.
But like a steak.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, actually, that makes sense. Actually, now that I think about it, I'll come around. It's a goddamn miracle that I got this far. He doesn't do that.
Huh?
Gooey doesn't do that.
What if he did? What if he
have a?
What if he just yell?
I mean, he kind of does in Kingdom Hearts. He goes. I think we gotta stay more left to avoid ice biome spawns.
Yeah.
I think this probably needs to be expanded.
I ran out of dirt bombs.
I got 2 blocks of dirt.
No, a fast clock. That's not what I want.
fast clock. Actually, wait. Isn't megaphone a... Why does it sound wrong to me now?
I don't know. I thought you looked up.
I saw it and I assumed. Yeah, pixies, dark... Oh, apparently the mummies can also drop them. Dark mummies and blood mummies. Might be better to go there then.
Yeah.
Just spawn.
Because it's only...
Just spawn gooder. She's got money from her parents and her trust fund back east.
Wait, what drops it over there?
Blood zob blob shub.
Ooh.
Blood zombies and mud zombies and blood zombies and
Mud zombies.
pixies, green jellyfish, dark mummies, and blood mummies. So I guess the crimson biome would be the best.
Yeah.
50 corruptors.
Well.
To the crimson crumtion I go, I suppose. It's a goddamned...
Ow.
Oh, I saw my eyeballs coming at me. I thought it was a wyvern for some reason. Get on, you freaking zombie. Mummy, I mean. Yeah, yeah.
There's not much night left.
Get him, boy.
Boy!
Legs, yes! Legs! Yes!
Legs!
Legs!
Splips!
Get out of my house! Cremera.
Drop it. Now. Oh!
Oh! The old man video. And they're really pour it in. Hey, fleeting blindfold. Go fight the Dread Nautilus. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you him. That's the boss that only appears when you're fishing on a mini boss that only appears when you're fishing on a blood moon.
Oh.
We should do that. We got one more blood moon in us. Moon of blood. I don't want to feel my moon is bleeding. Moon of blood.
Ouch!
Ouch. Where did I get? Apparently I killed it. Mimic. You can have this. You can have this. Give me the money. Give me the money.
Here are your vitamins. Take them.
I should take my vitamins, actually. Okay, where are we at?
I'm gonna go
What?
observe the jungle for some more life.
Oh yeah, that's a good call. Clean it up a bit. I eat diseases like I have a pussy. And my pussy's diseased and I have a diseased pussy.
I can't smell. I can't smell.
I think that's how the song goes.
On it.
It's one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. Eat the pussy like a watermelon.
tears like watermelon?
It's just fun to quote. I don't think it's even good. When I hear it, I'm like, I don't like that. But it's just fun to say. I eat pussy like I have a disease, and the antidote is inside the pussy. Oh, that's not good.
I was just mining.
I was just minding my own business. I'm on the way. I mean, I'll try. Just, live. I'll be a sec.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Then ask you all that.
Okay.
Let me try the poison flask. It's probably fine. Head over to the tables. Summon all my boys. I guess we're fighting Plantera. Ah!
First phase is really easy.
Potions on the ground. Top left. Drink the potions.
Oh.
Oh, I forgot we're out of good healing potions. But all the pixie farming could be good. I don't know, it's worth it to kill the gross little fellas? Does she make more? It does them.
I don't know.
Oh, they're grabbing. They're trying to grab me! They're trying to grab me! I can't tell if the poison's doing any good. I really don't know.
Okay.
Me when I get punched in the heart? Oh, dip in the honey, do you get a sip?
Oh, yeah. Ow!
I'm gonna die. I just gotta tip what's near me.
Stop feeding me hands. But this bitch kinda easy.
Yeah, this is going a lot smoother than I thought it would, honestly. Cool.
Pussy!
That was not as hard as I expected.
Alright.
Rockets. Pygmy staff! Oh my god, it's like double the damage. Holy shit. So, let's go, boys. We got work to do.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Rip them apart.
Jesus!
Wilhelm, kill these savages. Understood. That's what he does. Borderlands 2. Alright. What? That's what he says! Jack goes, Wilhelm, kill these savages! And Will goes, understood! And then he kills them. It's not funny, it's really fucked up, actually. It's quite a sad moment.
Sorry!
Hey! Mahib!
Mahib!
I don't know how I feel about the spore sack. I don't know.
What?
You know what? Let's try it. Why not? But I'm low on pygmy.
Oh, shitty. I got a shitty magic weapon. The bees. The bees.
I'll try it out. I'll hold the spore sack on me. Have one less pygmy.
Hold me.
So I think tonight we'll try to get
Come on.
Stop! We'll try to fight that Dread Nautilus. We'll fish in the corruption or in the Blood Moon. Just, to experience it. And then
Should do fish quests.
Shh. Don't interrupt me. Or
Jungle surface.
and then we'll fucking what's the other thing we gotta do? something tonight. Oh, get the megaphones, hopefully. Andy the Cyborg. Oh, actually, this is good. This is good. This is. I think we can get an achievement. Well, I can get an achievement. I believe doesn't he sell the quad thing?
No idea.
I think you gotta fly a quad thing into space.
I thought you just sold rockets.
I thought you sold rockets. Shut the fuck up.
Okay, I was just putting it out there.
Disease. Pussy.
Bazinga.
I do feel like these guys are immediately not as aggressive as the other dudes, which I don't like. I want them to hunt actively. Like, kick their asses. I don't want to have to tell you to do that. I want you to see them and thirst for blood. Old shoe.
I got it.
What? Why is my fishing so low enough to get an old shoe? I got an old shoe? I'm getting garbage? Oh, I got one.
A shoe?
We're good. I'll put this boulder.
I asked that earlier.
Ooh.
I asked who.
Swordfish. Oh, angler pants.
I'm just getting pains. Sells goggles. Yeah. Quad racer drone.
Alright. Achievement time, fellers. I don't know how this thing works. Let's see. Rotate left, right to steer, and press up to accelerate. Rotate left, right? What?
What the fuck?
Oh. Oh. It's actually I thought it was just a what the hell? Oh.
Fuck?
Oh, it's weird.
What's the achievement?
You gotta fly it into space.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see. Okay. Just hold up.
I did it!
Achievement? Hey! I don't know what the practical application of this is, but I'm learning how to control it. I get it now.
It's neat.
Alright. So, achievement-wise, I think we got, what, 2 more left? Find all the slime pets and have them move in. And shimmering, dimmering, which we have not experienced any. We haven't seen any shimmer yet, so that is just a matter of slime.
I guess it's almost night. Well, I was gonna go to dungeon, but
didn't ask. I really didn't ask.
What did?
Alright, yeah, I think we let's Alright, screams are echoing from the dungeon.
Screams?
Boom.
Oh.
Alright, I guess I'll just hold the temple key in my damn pocket for now.
Did you have the jungle key?
Oh yeah.
Or was it jungle? I don't remember.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, not that I'm gonna use a piranha launcher, but
Right.
it'd be still cool to do it. It's an achievement, but I've already done it, but it's still cool. Alright, we got one shot with the... you made battle... Were you using battle potions?
For...
When we were farming? Just, like, for the...
Yeah, I used them.
Okay.
So...
I figured we were, because we got, like, a lot of stuff. Just making sure.
I don't see the cultists. Oh, wait, they don't spawn
Yeah,
after... They don't... Golem, okay.
What time is it? Yeah. We can diddle.
Awesome.
All I really want for Christmas is you. I need Bonely, that's what I need. Bone him.
Don't run away.
I got a stuff.
I need a tabby and a black belt. I think that's all I really want.
Hmm.
I got a strong rocket launcher. I got a strong rocket launcher.
I got a jousting lance.
I don't know if there's any summoning stuff I can get here. But
Oh, what the fuck? Like shoots, sort of? This is a weird.
You see. Speaking of Kingdom Heart, speaking of Goofy, hyper-realistic skull. Use a Keyblade. Does it do anything cool?
No.
Wow. I was thinking about, like, I was listening to Simple and Clean the other day, and it's a great song, but, like, it really has nothing to do with Kingdom Hearts.
What's
It's like a Simple and Clean, the titular Kingdom Hearts theme song.
Oh.
Like, it's a beautiful song, and I love it.
There's a.
It has nothing to do with the game.
Paladin.
Vanille? She's here?
Who?
Vanille? God, you are meaty. Don't get me wrong, I love you. What does that mean? I have to meet your father. What the? Bone?
Miss Ya Bones.
Definitely gonna collect things, and maybe we can make something poggers to have.
Oh,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's any summoning options from here, but I'll keep one big moist wet eye out.
Why is it wet?
Your eyes are perpetually moist.
Hmm.
At least they should be. At least a little.
Not if you're cool like me.
Wrong.
Keep them open 24/7.
Bad.
Where is the jungle chest anyway?
I already opened it.
Oh. Oh, she's 3.
Wow. I'm sure it's fine. When you are walking away from me, or you do not hearing me say to you, "Come back! Get back here! You bitch!"
Oh, Paladin. Paladin. Paladin.
Is the way that you're making me feel today. You're dead?
Oh.
Are you bleeding from this legs?
No.
Oh, I am.
There's more marble down there.
Marble down there. You are like a baby. Oh, black belt with the tights underneath.
Shit herself?
Sorry. I might go back to the eyeballs. These guys are like fine, but I don't know.
Oh, a Bruce Lee. A Bruce Lee. Or Bone Lee. Ah!
Your dad sucks.
Yes.
Dig up this hallway. Just make this a little farming area. Hey,
It's
you're not
nighttime.
ripping up my organs? I need those organs.
I need to heal.
I don't know. I kind of like.
$5.
I think maybe, perhaps, I'm going to stick with these guys. Oh, the poison's kind of nice, but I don't know. I like the. They have this like wanton destruction air about them that I really enjoy. I'm gonna heal if we're gonna fight this fella. Hey, Bucks, you cuck. I think you just fish. I don't think you have to have any special. Oh wait, you might need chum.
One sec, I just want to see. I can't remember like, what I can do with Doplasm.
It's not the time. We are unlimited nighttime. The guy's not going anywhere. I thought we needed chum, but I don't remember where to get chum.
I have no idea.
This is fish again.
See what pops up. I can't remember how to chum it up. Be gone.
Oh my god, so slow.
No, sorry, pygmies. What is the crimson? I don't remember. Oh no.
Wait, didn't that have to be a blood moon?
Oh, I didn't do it. I am so silly. I was like, why isn't the water red?
It's red for me.
No, I was like that, but now I'm not like that. I got a madness in blind.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to fish in these situations. I'm pretty sure we need the chum, but I don't remember how to get it, so maybe let's just focus on getting these things. This is our last blood moon.
I have one as well.
Have one what?
A blood moon thing.
Whoa. Maybe we'll try here.
Where did we have to go? Crimson?
Yeah.
William says do not need chum.
Okay. Oh yeah, I just got one of the special enemies. He's fucking my day up!
I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming!
Stealth. He drops chum. Maybe now you... I don't know.
And he gives you chum.
Yeah. I mean, just use it. I think it just makes your fishing power better.
Toss in the water up to 3 times to increase fishing power. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That was just...
Plankton!
Just use it. Then we'll go fish here and see if we can get this thing. You'll know him when you see him. He's kind of obvious.
Oh!
Oh! The Venga bus is coming, and everybody's coming. Everyone won't stop coming.
Why am I getting barrels?
You're not. You're getting crates, you fucking idiot. Just ready to switch back to my other loaded if required. Yeah, Ben Clay.
What the hell? Ow!
Oh. Oh my god, I'm getting bodied.
It's a shrimp! That's a...
Get out of the damn tree! Get the fuck out of the fucking tree!
Ah!
Uh-oh. He's backing that ass up! He really is! He's hot.
5 seconds.
I don't even know if he drops anything, but... There's some hearts down here.
Hey, achievement.
Alright.
Ew.
So, make the most of the rest of this night. I don't know what he drops. I saw a bloody tear, but... thought
I got a sanguine staff.
I don't... Is that the suck? The one that sucks?
Oh, it's a summon?
Oh! Hold up. I mean,
Ding 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 ding.
yeah, that's true. We're gonna rap until the wheels fall off.
Ooh. Ooh.
We're gonna rap until the wheels fall off, Mickey!
That's a cool summon. I like it.
Bring it to mine, Ein.
Well,
And
stop
I
running
shall-
away!
I'm going to the fucking biome, you bitch. Alright, eyeballs, leave for a minute. Oh, blooded? Oh, blood bats. Wait, these are sick. These are exactly what I would desired. They hunt, they hurt, they squirt, they dirt. And these don't even have a buff. And they do more damage. And they're unprefixed. Wait a minute, Mr. Postman!
So much garbage.
The bats are my best friend now.
You're my best friend, my best friend. What are we trying to get again?
Megaphones. Oh, the bats are everything I've ever wanted. I didn't even know these little fuckers existed. Well, how about that? I wanted to fight the dude for fun just to see him. But it turns out, he was good to do in the...
He's got cool
What?
shit.
Some of his other stuff, too. I am kindly requesting one megad phone.
Please.
Or two, if you're feeling nasty.
I lost connection.
Nice. Oh, I just right-click someone and they're all like, I'm gonna eat your ass, I'm gonna eat your ass. I'll eat your ass! Sorry. It's probably because there's so many items on the goddamn ground, actually.
Yeah, it just says connecting to.
That's true.
Cancel that. Try again.
Let me pick everything up, maybe that'll help. About morning, anyway. Alright, well, I guess we spend our days in the damn dungeon, and then we spend our nights eating Funyuns.
Maybe just restart. It's just not letting me in.
So let me clean up my inventory. Yeah. Keep. Absolutely keep. Put that away. Sell that. Keep. Put this away. Sorry, just easier for me to do this while I'm it's in my. If I get distracted, then I fall apart, and it's a whole thing. Wait, hold up. Is this a material? Hold up. Okay, wait. No, wait. We'll stop. Okay. Multiplayer, host and play, Popeye's chicken, drunky funky, start. I don't know when I'm supposed to take my medication. I was on this pill once before, and I told the doctor I remember having it, like, feeling okay on these. So, I told him I want to try them again. They were gonna put me on what he was describing it to me, and he said it's for nerve pain, but also it might help with anxiety. And I was like, that sounds scary. I don't know. So I was.
What are they called?
What?
The pills.
Trintalix.
Tridlix?
I don't know. I think I took them after I ate, but I haven't eaten in a bit. Where's the glide? Did he glide? Nope, he's right beside me. Okay, ectoplasm. What are we looking at? Spectre chlorophyll. We need pumpkin moon, naughty present. To make some specter bars, then. Alright.
Alright, Spectre bars. What can you make with a Spectre bar? What can you make with a Spectre bar? It's magic stuff. Spectre wings, drill containment unit. Tools. Oh, better paintbrush, hammer, paint roller. I mean, but don't need it anymore. Do we need the pickaxe or something?
Which one?
The Spectre one.
I don't think so.
It's a nice.
No. No, because the next pickaxe is the golem pickaxe.
Golem. Oh yeah, that's true. Oh, I feel Ebon coils were good for wrath potions. Apparently, the jungle chest is a material. What's up with that, guys? What's going on with that? Oh, a trapped jungle chest. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
During this day, did you want to try doing the old man army thing?
One moment, I cannot think. I need to sort my inventory. Stop. I need to sort my inventory and then I can think. Yes, yes. I don't know. I mean, if we're strong enough, I guess.
I think so. I don't remember how hard it is.
I remember it being pretty tough. Especially the Goober Oogert.
I already bought a crystal.
Him throw his booger. I'm just making potions. I think we're gonna need potions. Also,
okay.
I think it's pretty tough. Let me go upgrade my staff. Alright, Mama needs a new pair of guns! Damaged. Adept. Bad. Lazy. Masterful!
Wow! I haven't gotten a new weapon in so long.
It's been, like, you got one last session. Relax. It's fine. You're fine. You're good.
I need better things.
You're impatient and impulsive and made of silly little bean energy. So you just want me to bring potions to you, you lazy ass?
Yeah.
Do we have any...
A Flying Dutchman in the background?
Oh, we don't have any frickin' armored cavefish. Wrath potion increases damage by 10%.
The hell was that?
What?
Oh, wyvern, go away. I like how they sit around you.
No, you don't.
What?
You hate that.
No.
Alright. Oh, that's the steez I desire. Though I do kind of wish he tore more ass.
I'll do left, you do right.
No.
Right, left.
Sim Gems. What is this? The Sims? Yo, what?
The Simps.
The Sims!
Cool.
Oh, the Simpsons. Interact with the crystal to rush the next wave. Okay.
Hurry up.
Oh, they're vomiting. I'm pretty sure it scales horde. I don't know. I remember the ogres like causing a lot of problems because they throw them boogas.
I love them boogas.
And then you get slowed, and then it's like a whole problem.
Oh, brother.
Oh, brother, I'm covered in that sticky goo.
Ooh, sticky, icky.
Sticky!
Stinky.
Okay, so far so good. Now this guy's big.
Ow! Little dog thing. Little tanky, little tanky.
Why don't you fly to heaven, you piece of shit?
Oh, whoa! Whoa!
Got him. Defender.
So
man.
much mana.
Yeah, you're supposed to like be summoning things, but you know what they say. I don't feel like it actually.
Who's
Well,
this?
you glide to heaven. Oh, the noises. Oh.
Ow! What do you mean wave complete? I'm still fighting!
4 defender medals total. Wither beast. See, that sounds like it could be a problem.
What the
that?
fuck? Oh.
With her beast. What about without her beast? Am I right?
No.
Huh?
You're wrong.
What is this sound of rattling?
Oh god. I didn't see the flyer. You
What
fucker.
the hell? He's trolling. Razmi, I have the ray gun. It's not funny.
Yes, it is. The ray gun sucks ass.
Okay.
Unless you have PhD.
Irrelevant.
Not really.
No, it's like irrelevant to what's happening right now.
You brought it up.
Still tangential at best.
Oh, what the fuck is slowing me? He spat on me.
Yeah, I said that. You don't listen. I warned you of his goo.
Oh, he dropped a weapon.
You know, let me know if you need help. I'm just kind of chilling over here. I'm in a purple circle. I don't know who did that, but we're not doing that anymore.
Oh, they're getting kind of close on my side. Oh, he bumped me! Oh, Jesus Christ.
My teammate is trolling. Wow, those dragons, if they get this set up, they just go crazy.
God damn!
Ugh. Bro, my team?
I tried.
Oh wait, this guy's a monk set that does summon stuff. That's better than what I have? Oh no, we have to grind this out. Yeah, Monk shares 22 defense. Hollow Plate Mail's 15. 70% crit strike chance. Don't care. Alright, well, I bought a piece. Then I'm gonna start working towards it, I guess.
I have 13. It's just summoning, so I don't need it.
There's other stuff, but I don't know if you'll want it. Oh, he just gave me 10 defender medals for clicking the wrong button. There's Huntress stuff, which is for sentries. Oh no, it's all. Oh no, it's just summons and then. Oh yeah, it says all summoning. It's either melee and summoning, mage and summoning, range and summoning, or just also melee and summoning, but different. I don't really. Better melee or more summoning, less melee, more sentries.
Give you the 10 you gave me as well.
I don't fully understand. Oh, actually, I have the whole set now. Set bonus, increase your max number of sentries. Lightning Aura can now crit and strikes faster. Come on, man. I mean, I have way more defense, but my minions are shot. Two? Ooh,
Only have
ooh,
2?
Ooh,
I don't know about 2.
ooh, ooh. Yeah, that ain't a chieftain. Also has a fixation on like the aura like I don't care about that. Alright, let's see if we can get vitamins. No. Yes, no. Megaphone.
Oh, fish.
Yeah.
Surface or underground?
Surface.
Dirt! It's dirt!
I wish I was dirt. That'd be cool. Box. Punk bitch.
Mithril crate.
I wonder what's for dinner. Dirtfish. I bet dirtfish delicious.
Probably tastes like dirt. Dirtfish.
You might be from the south if mama make you a dirtfish.
You smell like shit.
Okay.
Oh! Enchanted sundial.
Oh, that's good. This could be good. Mine carp? Oh, I got a mine cart that's a fucking fish.
Yeah, we can probably just run left from here.
I thought it was like a Minecraft joke, but it's not. It's a fucking minecart that a damn fish, and a minecart that a damn fish, and a minecart that a damn fish, and a minecart that a damn fish.
What?
Eat a burger with no honey and mustard. Eat a minecart with a damn fish. Eat a minecart with a damn fish.
I love fish.
Huh?
I love fish.
What's that? Speak up.
Fish.
Oh. Did you do that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was just a... Oh, yeah, I guess it wouldn't make sense if it started late. Sometimes my bats just didn't come back. Hello? Let's not do that. Summoning in this is so janky clunk sometimes. I hate to say such crass terms, but it really is.
You didn't join the blue team?
Shut up. Hey, megaphone.
Hey. Now we're gonna get the other one, like, immediately.
Hey, Michael, what's up, dude? How's it going?
Hello!
Hello!
What the fuck? My game just randomly tabbed out.
What? Sue the devs.
What's going on?
Just chilling with my favorite streamer. Yeah, Mason's pretty good at streaming.
Thank you!
Oh, what was that? Try to sweep through and pick everything up more often to avoid that you, Monster meat! Summons a small pig man!
Ants!
Yay. How was your day, Micah?
Shirt!
Hope everyone's having a lovely day in the chat. Even if you're not in the chat. Even if you're in fucking Timbuktu, God forbid. I hope you're having a beautiful evening.
Get Timbuktu.
You can't say that. Fuck Mason. That's true.
Oh my god.
That's true.
You would wanna fuck me.
That's true.
Pussy.
Yeah, it's very bad, me boy. Fuck me pussy. Alright, we're done.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
Right, there's a mint. I want the moon.
But it's still nighttime. What do we do?
See if we get a crimson key.
True. I would like the knives.
Okay, kind of boring. You have a better day. I mean, as you know, I spent a large amount of my day in the hospital. I texted you for a minute. So, I'm hoping that it will. I'm hoping that the 4-hour hell wait that I spent in the hospital today with the worst headache I've ever had in my life, with a child just being so obnoxious, wasn't worth it, and the pills that I got prescribed, and they're gonna try to get me a psychiatrist. I hope it'll pan out and be worth it ultimately, but I'm pessimistic as shit. I got another megaphone, that's funny. I'm hoping it'll work out. I'm cautiously optimistic. Sorry for your roasting you for nothing. Well, not for nothing, but for your loathsome and gross construction. Oops, I did it again.
What?
You're horribly repugnant.
What happened to the spawn rate?
Yeah, everyone's kind of just left. Alright. Okay, well, dude, I believe you. I assume you meant I believe in you, which you shouldn't do. Statistically, that's a terrible bet. I don't know, I'm just going with the flow. Doing what I can, which is not much, but...
Blindfold.
You know. Like, I really didn't want to go to the hospital, but last night was really bad, so I just... And, like, my next doctor's appointment was literally not till, like, the 15th next month, and I was like, I can't wait that long. I might not make it, to be as blunt about it as possible. So, I just went in today. As much as I really did not want to. I wish I could just hop in my minecart whenever. So you could. I want to look at my minecart.
Like Mein Kampf.
Mason, you're camping. How's the marshmallows? What the hell?
What does that mean?
I don't know. It sounded like you roasted your ass.
Well, you can sniff my dick.
Okay.
It's not pleasant. 1 platinum.
This guy's got penis cheddar. This guy's got legit cock gorgonzola.
Oh, poop.
No, that's a different thing.
A poop, I'm a winner.
This guy's got schlong parmesan. stretch. Actually, that reminds me, I haven't really done anything physical today. I probably should. You're spinning in one spot, you big turd. Well, we're farming. Though he is melee, so he really isn't doing anything.
It's just in case they get too close.
You're horrible.
Another blindfold.
Sorry for roasting you for nothing. Well, not for nothing, but you're loathsome and gross construction. Oops, I did it again. I picked up the pen and I'm thinking I'm him. Feeling beat like I'm borscht soup.
I love borscht.
I'll be here all week. Psych! I have to go soon.
Another banner.
I do need to do something physical today. I'm trying hard to at least do something to start feeling better. More deliberate too than just like I was just cleaning for a while, and it was like fine. Like I would work up a sweat sometimes, but I had to do like a lot. So I'm like deliberately exercising, even though I'm kind of averse to it, because I don't know, just helping myself is bad for my brain for some reason, but like good for my brain long term. But, my point is, I don't know, I'm trying to do it, like, especially now, because I reoriented my room, I have more space, so I can just, like, put on a video, like, some workout video, watch Netflix, and just do something. Try to feel more physically active, even if it's short, and just, like, stretching or something.
Unk shield.
Oh, Micah's in
Ew.
this?
What the fuck is that?
How'd they get Micah in the game? He's 2'1", just like in real life. I want my eyeballs back. That's the monster meat. It's a meaty monsters.
Monster mash.
Oh yeah, I guess let's make the Ankh Charms up. It was a foreskin smash. Hey, Ankh Charm, and then you combine it with an obsidian shield, and you got a fucking Ankh shield, bitch. A bitch, bitch, bitch. We are now immune to all diseases.
Cheese.
And I got warding and one reforge. I'm fucking cheating. I got a client open on the side, bitch. Eating Pizza Hut in my dad's garage.
Here with me. Oh, I forgot. Just two.
Alright, I got an Ankh Charm. Have you made your Ankh Charm yet?
Yeah.
Looks to me like a spider rider. It really doesn't. Look, man, I'll spider ride and die all day, all damn day. But you can't just say things look like spider riders when they don't. That's ignorant. One moment. I'm probably be using this Charm of Myths all game, so I should really reforge you.
Hollow water. Don't have any water at the hollow.
Yeah, just skip for today.
Actually, there might be enough water at the bottom there.
You're a watery bottom. My money. Warding.
Give me my money.
Alright, I'm not gonna do the shield because I'm changing that out soon once I get a tabby. I'll do the spore sack. I don't really know how much it's doing for me, but... Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. I want the other summon. I want more bat. You're armored. Good enough.
I'm not sure if it counts.
Yeah, I don't think it's in. I think it's too close. Yeah, no, I got a crimson or a corruption fish.
This one might be good.
Gonna make a new Twitch account, Micah. You have a problem. Micah, spider riders aren't real. You have to accept it and let go. I think this might be snow. That might cross over. I'll give it a shot.
Got magic. No, I got.
Atlantic. Okay, well I got a. Yeah, I mean it is ice as well, but that's fine. Slightly less odds. Oh, got one. Maybe it don't matter. Maybe we just get lucky. Micah, since you're a part-time rancher, we should play some Stardew Valley together. Then you can be a full-time rancher, but in like a video game. Part-time spider rider. Micah pulling up to the high school reunion. Everyone asking, what have you guys been doing? Well, since we've been apart. Micah pulls up on a big spider wearing armor. Oh, I've been, doing a little thing called spider riding. And the theme song plays. Got it. Yeah, that was not as bad as I thought. I feel like we gotta be coming up on 25 for that big boy.
Big pay.
The Duke.
I got a goldfish trophy. Again.
Cool. Hey, don't kill my guy. You guy killer. Alright, I think, dungeon time. I don't know, do you have anything you want from the dungeon? I got the tabby and I'm good. You know, once we get the tabby, I'm good, I should say.
I don't remember how good the hammer is.
I've been doing a bit of training, is what I'll say. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wish spider riders were as real as the next guy, but you have an obsession, man. You're obsessed with riding spiders.
Get away, gnome.
Going on spider riders. I mean, it does slam.
Oh.
What?
I just saw a random chest up there. I was confused. So, what should we try to clear out?
Well, I don't know. We're only getting one. Like, I only want a tabby.
Ow!
You only want a hammer. I don't know if it's worth the time.
Yeah, probably.
But I can't remember. There might be super rare drops that we want that I can't think of.
I don't think so.
Let's see. This is a sniper rifle. Obviously, don't want that. Already got a Keyblade. Just got a 50th one. Paladin shield, Paladin hammer, Paladin despawn. Nope, he just fell real far down. Oh, don't hurt me! Haha!
So much shit.
I'll ride the shit. I actually hate spiders, but I'll ride the shit out of them.
Another Keyblade.
Understandable. Dude, I love there's something about that yellow text when you pick up these late game items. Ugh. It's such a small thing, but it makes it so satisfying. Even if I'm never gonna use a Keyblade. I'm like, damn, that's a good item. I'm fucking cool for having this.
Damn, shorty.
Damn, shorty, I'm bad!
Shorty? Shorty, can I get a holla?
Shorty. Shorty. That's me ringing the bell to call Shorty. I really like the idea of someone going, damn shawty, I'm bad.
Oh, there's a little effect when you hit with the melee. It doesn't do anything, but
oh, simple and clean is the way that you're taking my pants today. Shadow beams.
What? Tally counter.
Everyone in the club going.
Coffee.
Can't see shit. Bro, you remember when you ripped on my dad's unibrow wedding photo? I mean, sounds like something an asshole-ish child version of me would do. Probably not one of my proudest moments.
Proud family.
Irrelevant. I apologize.
The fuck is
barbecue ribs, barbecue ribs.
Oh. Ah!
Damn, what the hell? I should have been a mage. Mostly. I don't know. I could build a spy. This like feels like a lot of effort for what we should be pretty quick.
Right. Blind.
Fish? What have you done? Now there's fish. I need LeBone.
LeBone.
Hey girl, I need LeBone. No, no, Google, I didn't ask for you. Stop it.
You wanted LeBone?
Sire, you desire LeBone? Google actually ships LeBone right to your door.
Google?
Low prices, you can get LeBones shipped right to your door.
New loafers.
And a pair of loafers. And a gun. Oh, bone.
And
could
M24.
everything I want. I didn't realize my webcam was off center. Sorry.
You did?
Shut up now.
Whoa.
The bone lead was not successful in giving me the item he wanted him to give me.
Ow!
Sherbert got by bullet. Sherbert got by bullet. Don't get me wrong, I love you, but does that mean I have to walk on water? I wish probably see if there are life fruits, huh? Give me what I want right now.
Gibby!
I hate Gibby, I'm gonna get him.
Gibster, get out of there.
You guys are made of meat.
We've got to get the money. I love meat.
Crave but 2 simple items. If I could pop a battle potion.
I'm using one already.
Oh, that helps. I got a Kraken. Forgot about the yo-yo. Oh my god, that's strong.
Ow!
This guy's so heavy, man. I can't carry this guy. I can't do it anymore.
I need the beetle suit.
Sneedle Snoot.
Jeffrey? have all of those? I already have it.
Note to self. Hopefully I don't forget. I want to buy stuff from the witch doctor. Try the vials of... the flasks of... what are they called? Vile, angry little poisoning. I got a menacing rifle scope. I think there's a better spot naturally to farm in. Maybe, look at down here, maybe they'll just funnel in. They're doing it. See, here they come. Why don't you all hit him? You ever think of that? You lazy shits. The bats just 2 of them at a time. Why don't you all hit them? I can't slaughter without my molasses.
I thought I couldn't be blinded. I can't see.
Oh wait, yeah, that's
Paladin.
that's supposed to not happen. Oh. Or no, I guess darkness and wait. I don't know. No, I'm confused. Uh-oh.
Ah!
I
can fucking sing.
I'm weeping.
Come.
That's Barack Obama.
More like Barack Obama.
Nope. It's alright.
I know, he's not right. In the head.
It's fine, probably. Let's just check the jungle.
Yeah. Racia!
No. I win.
1.
21. I really gotta remember to make spelunker potions for these little excursions. Something I'll say for the summoning to your class is that you really don't gotta think about a lot of the stuff at least I usually think about. Like a chlorophyte, didn't need to bother. Spending a bunch of time in the dungeon for stuff, don't need to do that. Yo-yos, no mo. Yo.
Don't want him.
Domo, arigato.
Mr. Roboto. The fuck?
I got a new whip in a bit. I wonder if there's a whip to get here. Isn't there a morning star? Where's the morning star at?
I don't even know what that is. But
Oh, my body hurts.
which one?
The cyborg body I keep in Area 53. I could feel we're testing neural links, and I could feel they're torturing him. But I will not help him. Wait, here's some. Look at the Splunker potions, so we can search a little more efficiently. Also, I'm gonna sit up in a second so my mic can probably actually pick me up correct. There's something touching my fucking leg.
It's me.
I'm gonna curb stomp your balls off.
I'm gonna eat you. Stop. Where is it?
I drowned my chat when I'm drowning in the game. Oh,
Drown.
my webcam fell all behind my desk. I hope you like the angle. Oh, feet reveal? Oh.
What?
Don't look at my damn toes. One second, let me actually like, put my webcam back on my desk.
He's gonna shit his pants.
God damn it, it fell the worst fucking way.
Oh, God damn it, yeah, fuck!
Yacht. Am I right, guys? Yacht. More life.
Okay, I return.
I would like to eat them. Life detect. Life detect. I see it.
Oily ass fingers. Oh my god. Okay, that's fine. It's alright. Where are all the fruit of life? I still have not got a freaking anklet of the wind at this point. I guess I kind of don't care.
I need a solar eclipse.
Oh yeah, gotta do those. Maybe do that next time.
To happen.
I'm sore. Probably adding soon.
Where is this light fruit? There you are.
Oh, I didn't know I was muted. Notice I was muted. I said that we should do a solar eclipse next time. Probably ending soon. I'm really sore. I mean, it's a little early, but it was not a great day. It was a fine day. I don't know. This is one of those days where you can't tell how good of a day it was until the future. That's how it goes.
Oh my god, so far.
And the light your life remains, and yet so far away.
Oof. Feral claws once again.
Sleep tight, I'm not afraid. I'm terrified.
Got that dog in me.
Oof. I really wish it. I keep feeling that things are touching me, and it's really not pleasant. A single life fruit. Yes, yes, yes.
Good, good, good.
Finally, a little something, something.
I've got 4 in my pocket.
I'm not finding a lick of shit in this piss factory. I apologize if people were. Never mind. No one cares. Never mind. A planter. Well.
They're fruit.
I'm not getting any of the delicious.
Another fruit.
I'm gonna go until my spawner potion I just used right now, and then I'm done. I'm cooked.
He's cooked. No, there's a
loser, loser,
Who's
loser,
right
loser. Big brown Biden.
Hello, big brown Biden.
Something just screamed? What the fuck is that noise?
Oh!
What the hell is that? Do you hear that? Oh, it's the bird.
I think it's the bird. Yeah.
Shut up!
Life fruit detected nearby.
Hello? Oh my god, this thing's freaking huge. Oh, I see it. That's something.
Oh, another one.
Nice. Maybe we'll have 500 health soon, just yet too soon yet.
What?
Hello.
I smell another.
Oh, my component hammer's been broken. I guess it doesn't matter, but it's not great.
No,
If you're a life fruit, you must show yourself.
no.
Show yourself, coward.
Don't do it.
Sure do have chlorophyte nearby.
How many do you? Ow, half.
I have one in my pocket. I've just been eating them as I go. I figured you'd do the same.
What's your health at?
460.
It's 470.
I will eat the one I have. I just go to full, it doesn't matter. Just, you're taking more damage than me anyway. But big. Oh, I want to try it. This sounds so good. When you honey and lava makes you get crispy honey. That sounds delicious. I want to eat that. Oh, I just found another one. Here's a fun fact from my Terrarians out there. You used to need crispy honey blocks to make the thing to summon a queen bee, but I think it was probably too much of a pain in the ass to mix honey and lava, so they changed it. Well, we're in sync like a boy band.
No. Where is it?
Three more. Got 1 minute on my potion, and then I guess it's fine. We'll just come back next time and
Yeah.
let's let it put some grow. It'll be all G in the G. Alright, so what do we got? We got a Frost Legion, Solar Eclipse, Pumpkin Moon. I need a tabby from the dungeon. I don't know what you want. Maybe the Balin Hammer. I don't remember how good it is. I don't know. I don't want to go.
I really just want the. I really just want the Terra Blade. I don't really care about the hammer.
Yeah. If we get it, we get it. Do the priority, and if we get it, we can just go. If we also happen to get it, sure.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, I think we're kind of. Well, we're not gonna do any like big grinds. Like we're not gonna go super out of our way for everything because I want to start the Calamity mod. My big thing is like we haven't found a new slime in a while, and I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the events could give slimes. There's still the alien invasion that could give us slime. The events like the Frost Legion and all those could do it. So I mean, I don't know. It might end up with us like searching for slimes, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. Just exploring different elements of the game. That's okay. I'm okay with that. Thanks for watching the stream. Sorry it was a little shorter than I usually go, but today was a day. Hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Are you still streaming?
Yeah.
Alright, go watch Mason. He's probably gonna play Call of Duty Black Ops 3 Zombies.
Yeah.
Bye!